Welcome to another episode of the State Sub Podcast. I'm your host, Brant Freeman. On location this time for the team meeting room for Texas State basketball as we talk Bobcat hoops with women's head basketball coach Zenere Antoine. We're also going to be visiting with head men's coach Terrence Johnson coming up shortly as well. But let's start off the podcast with women's basketball with Coach Z. And Coach, as you're getting ready now for year 14, let's start with year 13. Your takeaways from last season. What did you take away from last year?
You know, last year was very interesting from the standpoint that we went through some adversity early, fought our way through it, had a really good preseason, right? We ended up winning and going 3-0 at Miami going into conference play. Then conference play hit us with some injuries, and it was really tough, honestly, at that point, making the adjustments we needed to. But our team rallied at different points, and we were very happy to have those young women within that program at that time, especially for those young women that gave the Bobcats everything they had.
I noticed when I first looked at the roster coming into this year that there's so many new players as a part of this year's team. Roster turnover is always a thing from one year to the next, but I'm not sure I've seen as much from one year to the next for your program that I have this year. What was the biggest point of emphasis for you in off-season recruiting?
The most important piece for us was going to be making sure we weren't in a situation like we were in the previous season, right, that we just talked about, and that is having a shortened bench. And so opening up and utilizing all the scholarships available to us is something I've never done before, to be honest with you. We've never fielded a team fully of 15 women, and so that was a big piece of what we wanted to do. So in the event that something does happen, then the program is able to still stay quote-unquote afloat. The other piece of in doing that is being able to find ways to have opportunity for a lot of these women, right? Considering the transfer portal and some of the expectations that some of our student athletes have. And so that was a big piece of the thought process in recruiting, right? Finding women who should have opportunity to play within the first year, but also fielding our program to the fullest so we have a more robust bench and or depth.
You know, over the years, I've seen you bring in freshmen and really develop them. You look at Kennedy Taylor and Denasia Hood. They were freshmen that came into your program. Taylor Deere, Erica May, freshmen that came into your program. And by the time you fast forward to junior, senior years, they are phenomenal all-conference caliber players. So look at your freshman class this year. You have 4 young freshmen on this roster. What excites you about this class?
What excites me about this class is they're closer to game ready, like we talked about from the recruiting standpoint. And so I'm excited to see how quickly they're able to pick up on some of the things that we're asking them to do. Man, we run the full variety of capabilities within that particular group. We have 2 combo guards that are really good. They're top in the state in scoring. Actually, 3 of the guards are top in the state in scoring. Belinda's a swing player out of Houston. She plays both the forward and guard position. And then we have Takira, who's from out of state, who's from Virginia, and she's a really heady point guard. So each one of them brings their own unique talents, and I'm just really excited because all 4 of them truly have the opportunity to play.
Now, we know, though, when you're building a roster in college basketball these days, you can't do it exclusively through freshmen. You got to utilize the transfer portal. You have 5 Division I transfers on this year's roster. How much has the portal changed the game of women's basketball?
I don't want to say it's turned it upside down, but it's allowed coaches to expedite some experience within their program. Mm-hmm. The opposite side of that too is there's still that newness for them. So just them understanding a new environment collegiately. So you're talking about classrooms. Sometimes you're even talking about here we have beautiful weather, right? So for most of them, they're excited to come home or come to the warm weather. And then just the system, and then finding a way to trust again for whatever reason that they left for a particular reason. So working through that, in addition to the fact that they hold these really good skill sets. So making that work sometimes takes time, but I'm also really excited because all of those young women, including our freshmen, have really bought into Texas State and finding a way to help us win.
You know, you can divide your roster in thirds. The freshmen we talked about, the transfers as well, and that other third for you is the returners, the players that are back. It's not a large group of returners, as we talked about the big roster turnover, but amongst the players you do have coming back, who do you lean on for leadership?
You know all of them, to be honest with you, in their own way. You have Nicole and Sierra that have been Bobcats from the very beginning as student athletes their freshman year, right? And they both are now working on their master's degree, and they both have a vision. They want to win that second championship before they graduate. And so from them, right, there's a certain piece that we need from them as far as being able to lead and help our program across the board, both on and off the floor. Then you have student athletes like Jalen Foster, who's a returner, right, who's seen a considerable amount of playing time. So just her knowledge and understanding of what it's going to take, I think, is important. She, even at her previous institution, she was close to winning a championship. It's not in that seat yet, and so I'm excited for her. And then Morgan, who's taken some baby steps. Really, right now, we're really asking her to exponentially grow within our program, and I am really excited to see what that would look like.
Now look at your schedule, and it opens up with the Sun Belt MAC Challenge. Now you look at how you did in this a year ago, did very well. You blew out Bowling Green at home, went on the road, defeated Ohio, went 2-0 in the Sun Belt MAC Challenge. This is year 2 of this now. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on this scheduling initiative with the Sun Belt and the MAC?
I like that idea. I was just talking to someone this morning specifically about the challenge, that we have different conferences that have these challenges. I think it's a lot of fun. It's fun for fans. As a coach, there's always going to be an upside and a downside. The upside is you have 2 games that are scheduled. You have an opponent that you can prepare for, and so I think that piece of it is good. The downside might be sometimes within travel, within when you're, for the men or the women, depending, when you're in the middle of conference play. Traveling to an opponent can be tough. I would say that would be the quote-unquote downside that you hear some of my colleagues on both sides, men and women, talk about. But overall, I like the challenge, to be honest with you. And this particular challenge will be challenging for us because the coach that has taken over at Eastern Michigan, it's a brand new coach, came in from Siena and took 5 transfers from that school. So the same group that helped her, succeed and do well and get to Eastern Michigan, 4 of those young women are starters for her. So it's not going to be an easy game, if you will. No game on the road is ever easy, but knowing that they already have their own synergy and understanding of what it is she's asking to do and being able to help teach, right, those new young women in that program is really going to make it a challenge for us. But we're up for the challenge. We're working really hard to make sure that we give our best effort when we go on the road in Ypsilanti.
Some of the other non-conference games you have this year, you go on the road to TCU. You're playing UTSA in a rivalry game, facing Denver, Texas A&M, Corpus Christi. Just some of the other games in non-conference play. And, of course, later on in the middle of Sun Belt play, you will have that return MAC game at home. Your thoughts, though, on the non-conference schedule leading into Sun Belt play? How will these games get you ready for the conference?
Most definitely these games will get us ready for the conference, right? For sure, there's some matching similarities between the MAC and the Sun Belt, so that for sure right away it gets you started. And when you talk about Corpus Christi, right, they have always been in the hunt for championships or playing, and they're always top tier within their conference. He does a great job down there. TCU is just a juggernaut, to be honest with you. They have some transfers that I think they're going to be pretty tough, but I'm excited about that because we had the opportunity to play both Baylor and Tulsa in close scrimmages, so that gave us a good look as far as what that might look like for us. Obviously, UTSA doesn't really matter what, right, either team's record is. It's always a great matchup between our programs, so I'm excited about that. And then we have some others along the way. Denver on the road, right, going into the Mile High State isn't going to be easy. So all of these opportunities to face different styles of play, very similar to what we have within the Sun Belt Conference, is going to be important for us, especially in women's basketball. It's a highly competitive conference. I talk a lot about recently, specifically, our conference. Put some respect on our name. Our top tier kids now are transferring and going to the transfer portal, and they're going to P4s, and they're starting on P4s, and they're all conference players on P4s. So this conference in women's basketball is just second to none as far as top tier for a mid-major, and it's exciting.
Speaking of the Sun Belt Conference, the big news coming out, and that was they changed to the tournament format. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts on that now is now the top 2 seeds get a bye right to the semifinals, where if you finish in the bottom 4, you're forced to having to win 7 games in 7 days to win a championship. Very unique looking bracket now. What are your thoughts on the tournament change?
If we're going to be forward thinking and thinking about women's basketball and just Sun Belt basketball overall, giving the opportunity to those top tier teams to make it, right, to be able to fight in the brackets, if you take a look at these brackets in the NCAA tournament, and give them opportunities to have units, I think it is important. And that's the thought process behind it, and I can support that.
So, as I mentioned at the top, this is year 14 for you now. It's tied with Suzanne Fox for the longest tenure here at Texas State. And, of course, the two of you going back to back. You took her seat. 14 years ago now, and I look at the journey for you. 200 wins. You've won Sun Belt Conference Coach of the Year throughout the course of your career. It's been a phenomenal run for you to this point. As you look back at this journey, what stands out?
When you say that, first thing I think about is Coach Ricky Woodard, and I'm appreciative that she's still here. It doesn't make me feel as old. Things that stand out for me here at Texas State is Texas State itself, just to see the growth at Texas State University and the student athletes that have walked through, whether it be some of the young women that played volleyball, some of our baseball players, and for sure my women's basketball players that come back. It's really neat to see the impact that Texas State has on these young people through sport, right, and them getting their degree. And so I would tell you, as I look back, the thing I'm most proud of right now is just those student athletes who are now hardworking alumni, and they really love Texas State, and they come back and they give back. I couldn't really pinpoint any one particular sports moment, to be honest with you. As I look at pictures, what really hits me harder than anything else is just seeing how my kids now are getting older, and life has changed, and they are growing up not just loving women's sport, but just really appreciating having parents who are coaches. And to me, that's pretty special as well.
It's funny, you mentioned there's not really one moment, but I was going to ask you, 200 wins now, is there any one win you look back at your career that you felt was most special?
My first win.
Win number one.
Yeah, yep.
Win
the
number
first
one.
win.
Well, Coach, as you look forward to this season, what is your message overall to the fans as you get ready for year 14?
Well, for our fans, the one thing I want them to understand is they're going to see a really exciting style of play. We switch it up a little bit. You're going to see a lot of new faces that you're going to need to remember, because their opportunity hopefully will be there. So we'll be playing more young women. It won't be a really set roster where we're only playing 6 or 7 women. The intent, and they know this already, is our hope is to play 10 women so we can be in a position where we can really push our opponent.
Well, Coach, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us on the podcast, and best of luck to you this year.
Yeah, eat 'em up, Cats.
All right, there you go. That again, Bobcat head coach Zinner Anchar. We'll talk men's basketball next with head coach Terrence Johnson. This special edition of the States Up podcast continues. We just got done talking women's basketball with Zinner Antoine. Now we talk men's hoops with Texas State head coach Terrence Johnson, getting ready for year number 5 at Texas State. But, Coach, let's first start with looking back at year 4 for you. Your takeaways from last year.
Yeah, I thought last year was a good year for us. Overall, I thought we figured out a way how to weather the storm, come together as a team, and then put our best foot forward in the tournament. So a lot of times it's not about how you start, it's about how you end, and I thought that we ended on a good note.
That's 2 straight years for you now that you've done that. These deep tournament runs, having to play your way from that first round all the way to the semifinals. What have these runs meant the past 2 years?
Yeah, I think they mean that for us recruiting wise, I think they mean that we're recruiting the right type of guys that are resilient, that no matter how many times you're knocked down, you're going to get back up. But I also think that it means that it gives us some hope moving forward when it comes down to the returners. They know what it takes. They built the level of confidence in themselves that if we can start better than in the way that we've been ending, we can put together a complete season, and that's the goal this season.
Now, talking about the offseason here for you now, Coach, you lost some players to the portal, you gained some to the portal as well. The portal itself, what type of impact has it had on college basketball?
Yeah, I think it's had a tremendous impact on college basketball. You can track it however you want to, make the numbers work for you any kind of way you want to. The reality of it is that, you have to adjust. It's a very fluid situation. You have to adjust, and we lost our top 3 scorers, from a year ago, and now we got some new guys that we're going to be counting on, and we're excited about them, and hopefully that they can put together a dynamic run this season.
Yeah, between the returners that you have, the transfers that you've brought in, the incoming freshmen, what do you like most about this team as you get ready for the new year?
Well, I like the ability to connect. I think that these guys are close on the court and off. I know we still got some time to kind of gel. I know it doesn't get to that point until around January. You don't want to peak too soon in any area. But I love their fight. I love their grit. And I love their unselfishness. So I think that we have the recipes of making a good team, and we just have to put it all together.
In terms of the guys that are back, some of these guys have been around your program for a while now. Dylan Dawson, Drew Drennan, Tyrone Morgan. What does having them mean in terms of leadership on this year's team?
Yeah, you're talking about a group of 3 that has 4 championship rings. So whenever you can bring back some level of championship pedigree, I think that can help you in whatever sport that you're in. And also those guys know me. They know that the coaching is never personal; it's only passion, and they help me articulate my message and help me connect with these newcomers a little bit better.
Newcomers, amongst them, who do you foresee having an immediate impact on this year's team?
Well, I think all of them are going to be given an impact. I mean, an opportunity to impact. But I think if we can, if we had to pinpoint a few, I think immediately, I think you're talking about Tylen Pope, who's played at a pretty high level of college basketball, been to an NCAA tournament before, so we're going to definitely be leaning on him and counting on him to come in and make an immediate impact. We're excited about the skill set and explosiveness of a Mark Drone. We're excited about the length and range of a Frank Emu. So we got a couple of guys in which we're looking at, but also we're excited about a couple of things that Austin Green can do. He's a high level rebounder, and every game that he participated in at Pearl River, they won every game that he played because he impacts winning. So, and then we got Basante. And also Nate Deere, who we think brings some big bodies and can help us in the front court.
Early on in the podcast, when we talked women's basketball, I had the chance to visit with Coach Antoine about the Sun Belt MAC Challenge. The season begins with it. Mm-hmm. Her team was on the road at Eastern Michigan. You get to host Eastern Michigan here at home to open up the brand new season. This is year two of this Sun Belt MAC Challenge now. And like women's basketball, you played really well in this. You won on the road at Miami of Ohio, came home, and then you won your return game here, in San Marcos. What are your thoughts overall on this new scheduling initiative between the two conferences? Yeah,
Kathy and Keith have done a really, really good job of trying to push the agenda forward for basketball in the conference. The conference is definitely it's an extremely competitive conference. So finding ways to kind of get national recognition is important. This is the way that they saw fit to do it. And for us, I think the most important thing is for us to understand that we're going to control the controllables, no matter who's on our schedule, or no matter the location or the time in which we play them. That we have to be the best version of ourselves and be ready to compete. And then, embrace the opportunity to get better.
Speaking of scheduling initiatives, something else that we spoke about with Coach Z, and again, I would love to get your take on that, is the new tournament format for the Sun Belt Conference. The 1 and 2 seeds going right to the semifinals. If you don't finish in the top 4, it's going to make it really difficult to make a long tournament run. What are your thoughts on the new format now?
Yeah, that's extremely challenging, but it's also rewarding. We're talking about a league that there's a lot of parity. I think our second championship, I think the margin of victory was less than 6.5. And when you can win a championship in the league in less than 6.5, then it shows you that you could have lost almost all of those games as well. So it's going to be interesting down the stretch and to see how that goes. But every 1 seed in this particular league, has the potential to be a 4 or 5 seed, and every 4 or 5 seed has the potential to be a 1 seed. So I think it's going to be interesting if we get into Sun Belt Conference play and down the stretch. I think my biggest concern was the fact that I think we may be the only team, the only conference in the country that in order for a 14 seed to win it, they have to win 7 straight games in 7 days. There's a concern of mine for the health of student athletes, and I expressed that. And and obviously everything comes to a vote. And this is what they voted on, and we don't plan on being a 14th seed or an 11 or 14 through 11 seed or 11 through 14, however you want to look at it. But in the event that we are there, it's going to be an uphill climb, and hopefully it's one that we can look at and manage the health of our student athletes.
Your time here at Texas State almost runs parallel with the program's time in the Sun Belt Conference as well. So you've had a front row seat to see just how much the conference has progressed, how it's gotten better. Of course, all the realignment has meant some teams have left, some teams have come in. What are your thoughts on the state of the Sun Belt Conference right now in terms of men's basketball?
Yeah, I think it's probably about the best it's ever been, from top to bottom. I mean, obviously, all things aside, the travel is a little bit challenged when you talk about us being, the furthest west. But outside of that immediate challenge right there, you're talking about it's an unbelievably well coached and well prepared league. The venues are great. The towns are phenomenal. And I'm excited about the direction of the Sun Belt. And I think that they've done a really, really good job of, we lost 2 good programs, but we also added 4 other good ones. So, I think what Kathy and Keita's doing is pushing the agenda forward and making this better than what they found it.
So we know the Sun Belt Conference is going to be a gauntlet once you start Sun Belt play, but in terms of getting ready for this non-conference schedule as a whole, we spoke about the opener against Eastern Michigan, but what are your thoughts on the entire non-conference schedule to get you ready for Sun Belt play?
Yeah, I think we have an extremely competitive non-conference schedule. It's not what it was a year ago when we're playing, some of the top teams in the country, talking about Oklahoma, Houston, and JMU, to kind of kick off, conference play. And not to mention Texas, but it's a very competitive mid-major schedule. We have some early challenges that we're going to have to be ready for. So it's a big time year for us, and I think it should be fun. We're going to learn a lot about ourselves.
Again, this is year 5 for you now at Texas State. You look back at your first 4 years, very successful. You're 2-time Sun Belt Conference Coach of the Year, a couple of conference championships. After that, those 2 long tournament runs we talked about. You've won 3 games in the tournament each of the past 2 years. As you reflect on your time as the head coach so far at Texas State, what stands out?
You know what? I think what stands out is the fact that it's the relationships. I think it's the relationships with the Isaiah Small come back over the summer and work the Father Son camp, or with the Mason Harrell, who I just talked to on the phone for an hour last night, and the impact that he's having on his team and where he's at as far as scoring in the league, is top of the league in scoring. I think it's those things. Nigel Caesar and Nigel Pearson, and then all of those guys that we were able to kind of help change the trajectory of their lives with the opportunity that was afforded to them here. I'm not exactly sure how long a coach's life expectancy is at a particular place. But, I think the most important thing for me is the impact that I have wherever I'm at.
I asked Coach Z for her message to the fans getting ready for her season. What about yours and your fans coming up this season? What is your message to them? I
just think that for me, is you're difference makers. You are, and I would like for this community and for this student body and for everyone associated with Bobcat basketball and Bobcat community to know that we appreciate you, and I think that we're going to put out a product that you can be proud of, and you can be excited about, and that you want representing you and your family.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for your time joining us here on the podcast, and best of luck this coming season.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, that again, head men's basketball coach Terrence Johnson. That's going to wrap up the States Up podcast. For Coach TJ and Coach Z, I'm Brant Freeman, as always, reminding you to keep your states up, and we'll see you next time.